The neocons, neolibs, and mainstream media are all singing from the same song sheet, saying, we want war, we need more war. Now, Trump never gets media support unless he's threatening war. Today, it's Venezuela.
The president has been crystal clear. Military action is possible if that's what's required.
But he needs to understand that a bullet to the forehead may be his way out of Venezuela.
Sometimes one kick at the door and the whole rotten edifice falls down.
Tomorrow, Iran.
I am so pleased that President Trump is letting the Iranian president know there's a new sheriff in town.
Well, the Tulsi Gabbard of May 2019 certainly does not sound like the war-promoting hack that she is presenting herself as in the Trump administration today. Now, of course, she serves as Trump's director of national intelligence, and she was pretty silent following the abduction of Nicolas Maduro, the now former president of Venezuela. She had been rather silent when it came to the military aggression that was directed at Venezuela. But on January 6th, days after that abduction took place, she finally broke her silence, and here's what she had to say. President Trump promised the American people he would secure our borders, confront narcoterrorism, dangerous drug cartels, and drug traffickers. Kudos to our servicemen and women and intelligence operators for their flawless execution of President Trump's order to deliver on his promise through Operation Absolute Resolve. Now, anyone with two brain cells to rub together knows that what has just occurred in Venezuela, the US aggression toward Venezuela, has literally nothing to do with drugs whatsoever. You have to be like the most empty-headed shill for the Trump administration to genuinely believe that. I mean, Trump's not even talking about narco traffickers anymore. All you hear from Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Trump himself is oil, oil, oil. We got the oil, we stole the oil, we are total thugs, and this was all about the oil. But homegirls on X posting about how this is a war against narco traffickers? Are you for real? Just today, Trump posted on social media that he does not think that $1 trillion to the Defense Department is enough. He is asking Congress to up the ante, increase the amount to $1.5 trillion. Got anything to say about that, Tulsi? No? I mean, I didn't expect you to, because I've always known that Tulsi Gabbard was not who she presented herself to be. She's always been a fraud. And I paid a really heavy price for telling the truth about Tulsi Gabbard years ago. Now, her views on Venezuela were supposedly very different not too long ago. This was when she was planning to run for the Democratic primary and, in her mind, probably make it to the general, which luckily she didn't. But when she was running, she really presented herself as this peace-loving, aloha yoga video posting candidate. I'll give you some examples. Now, a lot of these are actually to the lead up of her announcement of her candidacy, but nonetheless, it's a good juxtaposition from who she presented herself as years ago and who she is today. So in January of 2019, she says, the United States needs to stay out of Venezuela. Let the Venezuelan people determine their future. We don't want other countries to choose our leaders, so we have to stop trying to choose theirs. Now, today she's saying that all that aggression toward Venezuela is about narco trafficking. But she was more clear-headed back in the day when she said, it's about the oil again. Bolton, meaning John Bolton, just exposed real motive for intervention in Venezuela. Quote, we're in conversation with major American companies now. It would make a difference if we could have American companies produce the oil in Venezuela. We both have a lot at stake here. I mean, I can go on and on. Here's one from February 2019. The root cause of mass immigration on our southern border is our history of US military intervention in Latin America that left countries destroyed. Before we talk about a wall, we need to end our ongoing threats of intervention, this time in Venezuela. I'm gonna skip ahead because most of the time she's taking jabs at the Trump administration, but she didn't name Trump specifically, except for this specific example that I'm about to give you right now. Let's go to graphic 7. Trump campaigned against regime change wars when he ran for president, but now bows to the wishes of the neocons around him, clamoring for the regime change wars he claimed to oppose, this time in Venezuela and Iran. You can totally post that about yourself, Tulsi. Congratulations. Now, at the time, she even took that message to Fox News. Take a look.
What we are hearing is an increased saber-rattling intention saying the United States needs to send in the US military now to wage yet another wasteful, counterproductive regime change war.
Do you believe that Nicolas Maduro has been a horrific leader for his people and that he should go?
I think that the Venezuelan people ultimately need to be the ones to make that decision.
But they have made that decision.
The United States is not helping the situation by interfering and basically pushing for externally yet another regime change war that history shows us has not turned out to have a positive impact on the people in the countries where we wage these wars.
Now look, I want to be very clear and just repeat over and over again that Tulsi Gabbard never had some major ideological shift. The warmongering, kowtowing politician that you're hearing from today is the politician she's always been. And I mean that, and I provided evidence of that literally 6 years ago and paid a heavy price for doing so. So look, to make it clear, she didn't have an ideological shift. The Trump administration isn't shutting her down or making her comply with their pro-war agenda. Okay, she's always been pro-war. In fact, watching her interviews closely, listening closely, looking at her record, actually reading her record, revealed 6 years ago that she wasn't who she was presenting herself to be. And I reported on that. At the time, I was hosting a show at the network called No Filter, and this is just a snippet, just one example I gave to provide evidence that she actually wasn't a dove, she was an anti-interventionist, and was very much in favor of the very wars that anti-interventionists have been criticizing. Take a look. It would be misleading and unfair to my audience if I pretended there weren't some concerns for progressives. Most of the worries I personally have center on Tulsi's foreign policy views. While she's clear in her disdain for military intervention in the name of regime change, she is supportive of the war against terror. The Intercept reports that Tulsi has argued in support of the global war on terror, a position antithetical to her anti-war image. The website votetulsi.com includes a direct quote by the Congresswoman that reads, "In short, when it comes to the war against terrorists, I'm a hawk. When it comes to counterproductive wars on regime change, I'm a dove." While that might sound okay on the surface, think about how many interventions the US has found itself in since the Bush administration, all in the name of fighting terrorism, right? So I'm not just talking about Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm talking about major military operations in Pakistan, Somalia, and Yemen, right? These were all done in the name of fighting terror. There have also been US-led coalition airstrikes in Mali, Syria, Libya, and West African airstrikes in Nigeria. Now, Somalia began under Bush 1, not his son. So that actually dates back to the first Bush administration. But I also want to note that the war on terror included many regime change wars, right? So when she said, when it comes to the war on terror, I'm a hawk, but when it comes to regime change, I'm a dove, she was insulting your intelligence because she just assumed you didn't know that the war on terror included regime change wars. Anyway, that was just one example. Other than that, I provided evidence that she was supportive of the US's illegal torture campaign, which Dick Cheney referred to with the euphemism of enhanced interrogations. I mean, there were multiple examples. She has a very close relationship with Narendra Modi. In fact, I believe he officiated her wedding. And he is not a dove, especially as it pertains to Muslims. So she showed who she was if you were willing to look closely, if you were willing to examine her record. And that's what I wanted to do, because it was important for me to ensure that everyone was fully informed of all the various Democratic candidates who were running in the primary that year. But I got a lot of backlash. I got a lot of hate from progressives who just didn't want to hear it. They wanted to, support her. They didn't want to hear that she had some stains on her record that they probably wouldn't be in favor of. And so there was some backlash. But the backlash that really bothered me was the backlash coming from her campaign, because we were set to do an interview with Tulsi Gabbard at the time. Cenk and I had her booked, we were ready to go. I do that report, and we got a message from her campaign. What was that message? I'll remind you. Although I would have loved to ask Gabbard about the issues raised in my previous episode of No Filter, I was informed by her camp that I would not be part of the interview she had with TYT last Friday. It was surprising, and a very surprising demand, considering no other candidate had done the same, regardless of how critical I've been about their positions in the past. I've said multiple times that true leaders put themselves in uncomfortable positions when it's the right thing to do. And answering the questions I had was the right thing to do. Now, I wanted Cenk to still do the interview. He did do the interview, and I provided him with all of the research I had. And he asked her very difficult questions, and she did not take kindly to that. I also made sure to sit right here in the studio and watch live in the flesh. Yeah. So Tulsi Gabbard has always been a fraud. And I'm glad that pretty much everyone has finally woken up to that. I think it's important for people to know who they're dealing with here. And just as a quick reminder of what Trump is actually doing in Venezuela, it's not about the drugs, it's not about drug trafficking, it is about the oil. And if any Americans have unfortunately been misled into thinking that the US seizing the oil of a sovereign country is gonna benefit all of us, unfortunately, you'd be mistaken. Journalist Lisa Desjardins has written that the Trump administration plans to put money raised from seizure of Venezuelan oil into bank accounts outside the US Treasury. They told lawmakers today, per multiple sources familiar. Every time I think of the Trump administration these days, I think of that B.I.G. song, like, give me the loot, give me the loot. Like that's all this is, it's amazing. Sources said they understood these as similar or decidedly offshore accounts. So she's reaching out to the White House for more clarification, and later said, I have now confirmed this with people from both parties and working in both chambers of Congress. Just yesterday, President Donald Trump announced that the oil companies who are a little iffy on oil extraction in Venezuela because it's gonna cost a lot of money. They have to build up the infrastructure there. It could cost as much as $60 billion. He wants to tell them, listen, don't worry, have no fear. You're gonna be able to privatize your profits, of course, but I'll get the US taxpayers to reimburse you for the costs of building up the infrastructure in a foreign country so you can extract their oil and then profit from it, and I guess keep that money in offshore bank accounts. So that's what this is really about, Tulsi. And if you think Americans are so stupid that they're just gonna buy these lies about narcoterrorism, I mean, there's a percentage, but an increasing percentage of Americans are realizing that you're full of crap, and I'm happy to see it.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.